Daniel awoke to the gentle hum of the city, sunlight filtering through the dusty curtains of his apartment. He sat at the edge of his bed, fingers brushing against the smooth frame, and took a slow breath. Today felt different. His heart thrummed with anticipation and fear in equal measure. He had prepared countless times for this moment, practiced his speech in front of the mirror, recorded himself, and listened to every subtle nuance of his pronunciation. And yet, as he stared at his reflection, doubt crept in. Could he truly stand before the panel and deliver his message with clarity and confidence? Years ago, as a child growing up in a quiet neighborhood, Daniel had been captivated by stories told in foreign accents. He would tune the radio to English broadcasts late at night, fascinated by the rhythm and melody of each word. He did not fully understand the meaning, but he felt a magnetic pull toward those voices. His mother would gently wake him and remind him to sleep, but the allure of English words remained etched in his memory. Even then, he dreamed of one day speaking fluently, of connecting with people across borders through the simple power of language. His first formal encounter with English had come in the cramped classroom of his primary school. Mrs. Sharma, the elderly teacher with kind eyes, had encouraged every student to speak without fear. When Daniel stumbled over words, she would place a comforting hand on his shoulder and whisper, "It is okay to make mistakes. They are stepping stones to success." Those words resonated with him for years. He would replay them during nights, when frustration threatened to overwhelm him. Mrs. Sharma's gentle guidance had lit a spark of confidence in his young mind. In college, the challenge escalated. Group presentations required him to speak in front of peers who seemed effortlessly confident. He noticed the slight furrow on Professor Rao's brow whenever Daniel's nerves caused him to rush through sentences. He tried joining drama clubs and debating societies, but each time his palms would sweat and his voice would tremble. He envied classmates who laughed freely at mistakes, shrugged them off, and carried on. For Daniel, every imperfect sentence felt like a spotlight on his limitations. Yet he persevered, reminding himself that growth lay beyond his comfort zone. After graduation, he joined a marketing firm with lofty ambitions. He envisioned leading international campaigns and forging global partnerships. The reality, however, was daunting. His projects often involved collaborating with colleagues from London, New York, and Sydney. Email exchanges revealed minor errors that kept him awake at night, and video conferences drained him with their rapid-fire exchanges. He realized that mastering written English was only half the battle. Spoken fluency and cultural nuances demanded deeper immersion. Still, he believed that determination and practice could bridge the gap. The pivotal moment came when his manager, Mr. Khanna, invited him to lead an upcoming pitch to a potential client based in Toronto. The client represented a significant opportunity, a contract that could elevate the firm to new heights and, more importantly, prove Daniel's readiness for leadership. When Mr. Khanna looked at him and said, "I have faith in you," Daniel felt a surge of pride. Yet beneath that pride lay anxiety. He knew that this presentation would test every skill he had cultivated over the years. It was time to face his fear head-on. At the office coffee machine, Daniel confided his nerves to Sarah, a colleague from the London office who had relocated 6 months earlier. She listened attentively, stirring her cappuccino and nodding. Public speaking never gets easy, she said, her British accent lilting. But you'll find that authenticity matters more than perfection. Speak from the heart, and they will listen. Her advice comforted him. They agreed to meet after work for practice sessions. Each evening they would share coffee, rehearse segments of the pitch, and critique one another with kindness. Sarah introduced Daniel to a weekly conversation group held at a community center downtown. It was a diverse gathering of professionals, students, and retirees, all striving to improve their English. They practiced impromptu speaking, role-playing scenarios, and even storytelling exercises. On his first visit, Daniel arrived early, his palms damp with sweat. As he entered the bright room, he heard laughter and friendly chatter. A smile from the group leader, Michael, eased his tension. He sat at an empty chair and listened, grateful for the warmth he found among strangers, united by a common goal. Michael was a retired professor who believed in experiential learning. He began each session with a simple question: what moved you this week? Participants stood in a circle and shared personal anecdotes, no matter how brief. Daniel hesitated at first, but when his turn came, he spoke about a childhood memory of watching monsoon rains sweep through his village. His description, painted with vivid details and raw emotion, brought tears to the eyes of several listeners. At that moment, he realized that language was more than vocabulary and grammar. It was a vessel for connection. Week after week, Daniel returned to the group, sharing little triumphs and setbacks. He practiced tongue twisters to refine his articulation and recorded monologues to track his progress. Sarah co-taught with Michael one evening and was impressed by Daniel's improved fluency. "You've come a long way," she whispered as they packed up. Her words filled him with pride. He smiled, thinking of Mrs. Sharma's hand on his shoulder. The encouragement of mentors, old and new, had become an invisible safety net supporting his aspirations. Back at work, he requested opportunities to speak in smaller meetings. His manager agreed, and soon he found himself facilitating team discussions. The first time, his voice shook. He fumbled with a technical term, pausing awkwardly. A colleague, Javier, jumped in and rephrased the point seamlessly. Rather than feeling defeated, Daniel felt grateful. He learned that collaboration meant leveraging collective strengths. He thanked Javier afterward, acknowledging that vulnerability could invite support instead of judgment. With each meeting, Daniel's confidence grew incrementally. At home, he devoted weekends to reading contemporary novels and listening to podcasts. He traced phonetic scripts and practiced intonation patterns. During morning runs, he recited famous speeches under his breath, feeling the cadence of each phrase resonate within him. In quiet moments, he repeated power words: resilience, empathy, integrity, until they rolled off his tongue easily. These small rituals became anchors, grounding him whenever self-doubt threatened to surface. He learned that progress was rarely linear. It was an ebb and flow of breakthroughs and plateaus. As the date of the Toronto pitch approached, Daniel mapped out every detail. He revised slides, curated anecdotes, and rehearsed transitions until they felt natural. He practiced eye contact, with his reflection and simulated questions from potential clients. He asked Sarah to simulate a tough audience, challenging him with unexpected interruptions. Each time he stumbled, she paused the mock session, guiding him to reframe his response with clarity. Their dynamic was honest and rigorous, infused with mutual respect. Through their collaboration, Daniel began to trust his instincts. The morning of the presentation, he woke before dawn. The city was still hushed, save for distant horns and the hum of early commuters. He brewed chai with cardamom and inhaled its comforting aroma. As he sipped, he ran through his opening lines, feeling the words settle into his mouth. He dressed in his best suit, a deep navy ensemble that made him stand a little taller. In the mirror, he smiled at the reflection of a man who had journeyed far beyond where he began. He whispered, "You are ready," and stepped out into the brisk morning air. At the conference room in Toronto, crisp light streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows. The skyline glimmered beyond the glass. Daniel adjusted the microphone, listened to static, then cleared his throat. "Good morning, everyone," he began, his voice steady. The panel of executives sat before him, faces attentive but unreadable. He continued, weaving data with narratives, strategy with empathy. He shared a story about a local business he consulted, drawing parallels to the client's industry. As he spoke, he felt a shift in the room's energy. A genuine curiosity sparked among his audience. Midway through, a senior executive raised a challenging question. Daniel paused, taking a deep breath. He acknowledged the complexity of the issue, referenced a relevant case study he had researched, and proposed a thoughtful approach. His response was concise, yet comprehensive. The executive nodded, impressed. Daniel realized that pausing to collect his thoughts was more powerful than rushing for perceived fluency. This moment crystallized his growth. Mastery was not about speaking without hesitation, but speaking with authenticity and purpose. When he concluded, the room remained silent for a heartbeat before applause filled the space. Relief washed over Daniel, tears threatening his composure. He scanned the faces before him and saw genuine appreciation. The chief client officer stood, extending his hand. "Thank you for an insightful presentation," he said. "Your firm's vision aligns with our goals and we would like to move forward." Daniel's heart soared. In that handshake, he felt the culmination of his years of effort, of every stumble and every small victory. The flight back to Mumbai felt surreal. Daniel replayed the presentation in his mind, savoring moments of triumph and analyzing areas for improvement. He called Sarah midair, her voice bubbling with excitement. "You nailed it," she exclaimed. "I knew you would." They laughed, their shared joy echoing through the cabin. In those few moments, Daniel felt gratitude for every person who had helped shape his journey, from his mother's gentle nudge as a child, to Mrs. Sharma's encouragement, to the kindness of strangers in his conversation group. Upon arrival, an email from Mr. Khanna awaited him. "Congratulations, Daniel. We are thrilled to promote you to Senior Marketing Manager. Your leadership and dedication have been exemplary." Daniel read the words twice, his vision blurring with tears of triumph. He stepped out of the office that evening and found the monsoon rain had returned. Raindrops danced on the pavement like celebratory confetti. He raised his face to the sky, arms outstretched, and laughed with pure, unfiltered joy. At home, he shared the news with his mother, whose eyes shone with pride. She wrapped him in a tight embrace, whispering blessings. His younger sister, reading in the corner, rushed forward to hug him. In their warmth, he felt the true meaning of success, not an accolade or title, but the ability to uplift and inspire. He sat at the dinner table, surrounded by family, and recounted the tale of his journey, the doubts, the breakthroughs, the kindness of mentors, knowing that each listener felt connected to his story. In the weeks that followed, Daniel settled into his new role. He mentored junior colleagues, sharing tips on public speaking and language learning. He initiated lunch and learn sessions where team members practice presentations in a supportive environment. The conversation group he once attended became a satellite meeting at his office, fostering cross-cultural dialogue among employees. Daniel watched as his peers discovered new confidence in their voices. He understood now that language was not a solitary pursuit, but a communal gift to be shared. One afternoon, Michael visited the office for a surprise inspection of the satellite group. He beamed as he listened to employees engaging in lively debate over marketing strategies and cultural trends. "You've built something special here," he said to Daniel. "Language has given your team a voice, and from that voice, innovation will flourish." Daniel thanked him, humbled by the acknowledgement. He glanced around the room, people laughing, ideas flowing, connections forming, and realized that every moment of struggle on his path had prepared him to lead with empathy. The year drew to a close. Daniel reflected on how his life had transformed. He had crossed oceans of uncertainty, navigated storms of self-doubt, and emerged with a voice that resonated beyond the walls of a single conference room. He found himself dreaming not of flawless speech, but of meaningful conversations, of stories exchanged, bridges built, and hearts opened. He understood that mastery of English was not an endpoint, but a gateway to deeper understanding and connection. One evening, back in the community center where his journey had deep roots, Daniel returned as a guest speaker. The room buzzed with anticipation as he stepped to the front. He shared his story candidly, the early nights of doubt, the small victories, the pivotal moments of kindness. He encouraged members to embrace vulnerability, to value authenticity over perfection, and to remember that language carried the power to heal and unite. As he spoke, he saw faces light up with hope and determination. After the talk, a young woman approached him shyly. She had recently moved to the city and was struggling to find her voice. Daniel recognized the same fear he once carried and smiled gently. "You are not alone," he said, offering to meet for coffee. Over chai, they practiced introductions, shared personal stories, and exchanged tips. In teaching her, he reinforced lessons that had shaped him. He marveled at how giving back ignited fresh purpose in his own journey. At home that night, Daniel sat by the window, listening to the distant hum of rain on rooftops. He opened his journal, an artifact of his early practice sessions, and began writing a new entry. Today, I witnessed the spark of hope in another's eyes. He paused, pen hovering, reflecting on the journey's circular nature. Each step he had taken to find his voice had equipped him to guide others toward theirs. The path ahead was endless, paved with stories waiting to be told. Months passed, and Daniel's speaking engagements extended beyond the company and community center. He was invited to local universities, radio interviews, and corporate workshops. Each platform presented fresh challenges: a larger audience, unfamiliar topics, subtle cultural differences. Yet he embraced them all with the same blend of preparation and authenticity. He learned to tailor his message while staying true to his voice, discovering that adaptability was an ally, not an adversary. In one memorable workshop at a remote college, a student asked him why he continued to push his boundaries despite success. Daniel took a moment, capturing the question's depth. "Because every new horizon reveals more of what I have yet to learn," he replied. Language learning isn't a race, it's a lifelong conversation with the world. His answer resonated deeply. The student nodded, eyes shining, and asked for further guidance. Daniel realized then that his journey had become inseparable from his purpose to guide others in finding their voices. Late-night flights to distant cities and early morning sessions in tropical climates became routine. He carried a small notebook wherever he traveled, jotting down expressions, idioms, and personal reflections. He learned to adjust not only to different accents, but to cultural rhythms and unspoken customs. Through this continuous immersion, he deepened his empathy. He understood that beneath every accent lay a unique story, a tapestry of experiences that deserved respect and curiosity. During a quiet moment on a train crossing the Scottish Highlands, he closed his eyes and listened to the soft murmur of conversation around him. He recognized fragments of speech he had once fumbled, now flowing seamlessly in his ears. He recalled the shy student at the college and the supportive colleagues at his first job. In that gentle sway of motion, he felt gratitude for every person who had offered guidance, each word of encouragement, every shared moment of vulnerability. On his 30th birthday, he gathered friends and family for a modest celebration. Amid laughter and clinking glasses, he delivered an impromptu toast in English. He spoke of dreams and detours, of the power of persistence, and of the human need to connect. His words were simple but sincere, each sentence carrying warmth and conviction. As he raised his glass, he scanned the smiling faces before him, feeling a profound sense of belonging. In the years that followed, Daniel continued to evolve. Authored a small book of personal essays about language and leadership, blending narrative with practical advice. He offered online courses to an international audience, touching lives across continents. Yet, no matter how far he traveled or how many accolades he received, he remained grounded in the fundamentals taught by Mrs. Sharma: a willingness to embrace mistakes, an openness to learning, and an unwavering belief in the human capacity to grow. One evening, as he prepared for a webinar on cross-cultural communication, he noticed a new message in his inbox. It was from Michael, sent at midnight. "Congratulations on the book release. I never doubted you for a moment. Daniel smiled, thinking of the humble community center where it all began. He typed a heartfelt reply, expressing gratitude for the ripple effect of kindness across time and space. He knew that every achievement traced back to those initial sparks of encouragement. His journey, he realized, was a continuous tapestry woven of countless threads: childhood fascination, moments of self-doubt, late-night practice sessions, and the generosity of mentors and peers. Each thread shimmered with emotion, hope, fear, joy, and resilience. He had learned that speaking a language was not merely a technical exercise. It was an act of sharing one's heart. Every conversation was an opportunity to illuminate unseen corners of the human experience. In a quiet moment at sunset, he revisited his childhood notebook, pages yellowed with age, ink blotched from enthusiastic scribbles. He read a line written by a 10-year-old. "I want to speak with confidence." He closed the book gently, feeling a sense of closure and renewal simultaneously. The dream of that young child had taken root, blossomed, and now promised new growth. He whispered, a silent promise to his younger self: "Your voice will always be your most powerful gift." As night fell, Daniel gazed through the window at the city lights below, each flicker representing a story untold. He felt a familiar excitement stirring within him. Tomorrow would bring fresh challenges, perhaps a new audience, a different topic, or an unfamiliar dialect. And he would welcome them all, armed with compassion, curiosity, and the unshakable belief that language could bridge any divide. He turned away from the window and opened his laptop, ready to continue the conversation. Early. The next morning, he awoke to the sound of rain tapping gently on the rooftop. He made tea and opened his calendar, noting an upcoming invitation to speak at an international conference on empathy in communication. Excitement mixed with nerves, reminiscent of his very first presentation. He reflected on how far he had traveled since those tentative steps in a community center. With a deep breath, he stood and performed his familiar morning ritual, a series of vocal warm-ups, reading aloud poignant poetry, and silently affirming, "My voice matters." That day, standing before a global audience, he felt the familiar flutter of anticipation in his chest. Yet as he began to speak, sharing personal anecdotes about the transformative power of empathy, he noticed a different sensation, a calm confidence that permeated his words. The listeners leaned forward, engaged by the sincerity in his voice. He guided them through exercises, encouraging them to listen to their own reflections. In that moment, he understood that his journey had led him to not only find his voice, but to help others find theirs. After the conference, a young attendee approached him with tears in her eyes. She explained that language had always felt like an invisible barrier between her and the world. She thanked Daniel for his authenticity and his example. As they spoke, he offered guidance, comfort, and a simple promise. When words fail, your intent will carry you. Speak with kindness, and you will be understood. They exchanged emails, and he encouraged her to join an online version of his group, ensuring that the chain of support would extend beyond the conference hall. That evening, back in his apartment, Daniel sat by his desk and reflected on the arc of his journey. He thought of the 10-year-old dreamer tuning into foreign radio programs, the hesitant student in Mrs. Sharma's class, and the anxious professional preparing for a pivotal pitch. Each iteration of himself had contributed to the man he had become. He realized that mastery was not a final destination, but an ongoing voyage fueled by curiosity and compassion. With renewed vigor, he opened his journal and wrote, "The journey continues, and my voice is ready."